Welcome to the Business Choice Podcast, where each week we interview our top expert award winners from around the country who are leading the way in their industries and impacting their communities. Alrighty, guys, so today I am super excited to introduce to you one of our special VIP guests. This is Dr. Emily McMahon, who is the owner of Alaska Hearing and Tinnitus Center, who specializes in helping patients find more joy by improving the sounds of their life. And I'm going to let her explain what that means. But Emily, thank you so much for volunteering your time to be on the show today.
Yes, thank you for having me. What that means could be a little different for each of our patients. So, as an audiologist, some of our patients come into the clinic and they are seeking hearing help. And so, helping to hear their lives could be giving them back the sound of a loved one, could be listening to a favorite activity or a sports game or a grandchild. And then for our tinnitus patients, of whom I mostly focus on and see, that's often giving them back the sound of silence and enjoyment and being able to complete those quiet activities again and not feel burdened by the perception of their tinnitus.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So I'd love to be able to give the viewers kind of a little bit of a glimpse of your journey. I'd be curious to know kind of how you got into this, what inspired you to kind of take this direction in the medical space. And we were speaking before the interview that you're coming up on your decade mark here in
Yes.
about 6 months, which sounds amazing. Congratulations. But would love to hear kind of that journey from what inspired you to how you got to where you're at today, and from the one location to probably lots of locations.
Yeah. When I was young, I had a childhood friend growing up whose little brother was deaf. And so I was exposed to audiology early on into my life when I didn't know anything or have any career goals in mind at that time. And so as I was exposed early, this was before cochlear implants in children. So I got to watch his journey with hearing aids and hearing and also American Sign Language. And so I just had early exposure. When I went to undergrad, I knew I wanted to go into healthcare. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, didn't quite know what that looked like yet. As that continued, I really enjoyed and fell in love with audiology, and that was the direction I was headed. I knew I was going into private practice. I like to work with others, but not for others necessarily, in that I've always been someone that wants to be able to push that bucket, go a little bit farther, practice at the highest level of my scope. And unfortunately, so often more than not, you get a little bit kind of stuck in a position with an audiology when you're working for someone else that you don't get to help lead or guide or be able to push that scope of practice and really practice to the highest level of your degree. I started my private practice right out of my doctorate program, which I thought I was going to take a little bit more time and I didn't. It was one of those, let's just do it. Here we go. We're going to make a lot of mistakes and we're going to have a lot of fun. And that is absolutely the path that we took. Make lots of mistakes, fix lots of things, keep on moving. But
A
those
lot of
first
our viewers can definitely resonate with that.
yeah, those first couple years were a whole lot of trial and error, and I had thankfully some wonderful mentors in the field, both from a different business perspective and from a provider perspective, to be able to help guide and shape me into making less poor decisions and moving forward in hopefully a less chaotic way at times. And as far as kind of how did the practice go? We'll hit our 10-year mark in May, which really seems impossible. It's been quite a tumultuous 10 years to own business. They say, as you're supposed to kind of go through your different marks. And I feel like every time we have one of those things, the entire world is like, oh, let's try this one now. Let's try this for a hesitation. Open a new practice. Oh, let's have a massive 7.2 earthquake. Okay, great. That sounds like a great day.
Sounds like there's been some experience with that.
Yeah. And so as we've kept going, one of the things we've always strived for is how do we bring care to a more accessible manner for our patients? Because many of my patients are seniors, and even for my patients of whom are not seniors, we're busy. We have jobs, we have children, we have family, we have lives, and lives are busy and hectic. And so we have really focused on telehealth and teleaudiology since about 2017. So way before telehealth was popular. And that allowed me to be able to bring my services to my patients in the comfort of their home or where they needed to be able to receive care versus not always being able to come into the clinic. Being in Alaska, and I have some patients that live more than 1,000 miles away and are still in Alaska. That is not a, hey, I'm having a
That's
problem. Can I
crazy.
just
Yeah.
drive in today? No, you can't drive to me. It's literally impossible. And so being able to do that facilitated care between both in-person model and via telehealth model allowed us to just expand that accessibility. As I got more and more into my specialty, which is tinnitus, many of my patients were snowbirding out for the winter, or they'd be gone and they'd say, "Hey, I was talking to my friend in my retirement community and they live here and they don't have someone that they'd like to see." And so that, as I call it, led to me collecting multiple licensures. And so that allowed me to start expanding my licensure outside of just Alaska so that I could both cover them within their state as well as cover my roles within my state. And at this point, I think we're at 15 plus state licenses. So it's kind of a joke of I'm somewhere and I'm always with patients. It's just not always in the same location. But it's been wonderful to be able to bring that subspecialty of care, of which there's not a lot of providers intentionally wanting to see tinnitus patients. And I want them. I love them. I love working with them. And so it's been fun and being able to rotate those field clinics. So while it may not be my brick and mortar practice in my outside state locations, it is another audiology clinic. I'm able to have that continuity of care and then be able to go and help those patients who I am full time taking care of, but in the comfort of their own community or close to their own community versus having to drive a long distance or fly a long distance to receive the care that they'd like to receive.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing story. There's probably hundreds of little stories wrapped up in that
Many.
rundown there. But I did have a couple questions pop up that even occurred to me as a question. So when I'm thinking about tinnitus and just hearing in general and telehealth, is that something where you're able to support somebody fully through Like, let's say that they're in a location, say they're in a retirement home in Florida, and you don't have a pop up location there or a place that you visit. Is that still something they could work with you and get the full suite of services all through telehealth, or would they need to at some point see you?
So I made a personal rule of thumb for my business that I will always do any fittings with a patient in person. So if we're
Hmm.
going to be utilizing a device for working with their tinnitus, which sometimes I don't use a device and then we don't necessarily have an in-person visit, but I did make a personal stance, which aligns with my following best practices and being able to make sure that I have all equipment necessary and qualitative measures to be able to be taken, that I only do fittings in person. And so that does require at least one in person visit. And so thankfully, I have a wonderful network of providers and I am not licensed in Florida. So in that example, I have lots of providers that I am very close contact with and have a really good referral sphere. That way, if it's an area that I don't facilitate care for, or it's a situation that I think that that person may need more in person care versus telehealth care, there's different reasons that that could be what's being experienced, then I will happily pass them off to a trusted colleague where I know that they're going to receive excellent care, but closer to home in a way that will best support their individual needs.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm curious over the next decade, since you're coming up on that decade mark, are you planning on getting licensed in more states? Are you going for another 15 licenses? What's
I
kind of
don't
the next step for you guys?
So I just did get fingerprinted yesterday for two more sites. So I don't know that we're going for 15 more. To be fair, I didn't know we were doing this in the first place. But when the fingerprinting gentleman recognizes you and he goes, "How many today?" I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, so certainly growth is on the horizon. Um, I am very thankful that I fell into a profession that I thoroughly love. I enjoy it. I love it. And I don't want to be doing something else. And so I think I'm very blessed in that so many people are not participating in life the way that they enjoy it and they have a job that is not a passion or not something that they deeply enjoy, and I do. And so because of that, as I'm able and still able to support those patients and continue to support them well, I want to be able to do that in areas that need a little bit extra help, or patients are reaching out saying, "Could you please help me?" So yeah, so I don't know what the next 10 will look like. I certainly didn't predict this for the last 10. I try to keep those doors open and be just open for the adventure as it's coming in appropriately. But yes, I did get re-fingerprinted yesterday for some more new licensures. So who knows where that will end me up in a few.
That's awesome. Well, and to segue off of where you were going with being in a profession that you love, which is these days oftentimes very rare, I'd be curious to know if you had to define your superpower or the unique skill or insight that kind of sets you apart in your space. What would that be, and how do you feel like that's shaped your success?
So I think definitely in terms of kind of what types of patients I see, or like subspecialty, that's going to be my tinnitus patients. I
Hmm.
am still an audiologist. I still do help people with hearing, but that is definitely not where I spend most of my days any longer. So within the tinnitus space, one of the things that I really think kind of sets us apart is our ability to run this like fully concierge practice. And what I mean by that is I really do mean to my patients when they need something, I'm here to be with them in that hard moment. Whether that be we're celebrating something or they've had a fluctuation and we've had a little bit of a setback, they know that I am accessible. In previous clinics of which I worked in rather than owned, I didn't have that kind of flexibility that I could offer my patients. And so that to me was a really important thing to be able to bring my patients. Now, there are some boundaries. I am not answering my phone for a patient at 3 a.m. I am sleeping.
Yeah.
So there's certainly some parameters within there, but we also have it set up then that they know how that they can send us an email in the middle of the night. We're not going to answer them, but we are going to read it and we are going to respond in the morning. And so being able to just be there for that patient, I can't tell you how many times per week the patient will just say, I knew I was on the schedule with you this week. And that right there was able to give me relief because I know if I need you, I can call you. And so I think that just accessibility that my team and I offer to our patients really sets us apart. We do mean that when we say we're there for you. We do mean I will pop you on for a quick tele if you just need a little reassurance. I have one patient who calls us just to say, hey, I need a pep talk today. I've kind of got down and can we just boost it up? Let's do it. There's no ask that's too small when it's coming for that because that overall wellness and just kind of mental wellness of approaching our healthcare, whether it's about tinnitus, whether it's about a different type of wellness journey, it matters. And we're all guilty of sometimes getting down into our feels and just kind of not being able to see outside of that hard spot. And so if I'm able to be that pep talk provider and I'm able to walk them through that hard spot, then I'm happy to do it. And I'm really glad to be able to facilitate that.
Well, which in itself is incredibly unique. I know throughout my 42 years of life, I don't know that I've ever come across a doctor that I could reach out to for a pep talk that's
Yeah.
working with me. That's usually not how it goes. So that's really cool that you provide that. I'm not saying for everybody to reach out and have a pep talk, but
Yeah,
the
I
level of
might
service is
have
kind
a
of where
lot of
I'm going
black
with that.
cough syrup coming after admitting that one publicly. But yes, I think it's important. I do mean to my patients within the absolute ability of my scope that I'm here for them. And that's what we're here to do. And I'm very proud that we're able to offer that to our patients.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. Well, and this also kind of brings up another question that could be this could be part of it, but you've been around the industry for a little bit now, a decade. In your experience, what do you see as being maybe the biggest problem in your industry or even in your niche of the industry, and how are you trying to kind of solve that for your current clients?
Sure. So on the general audiology side, there's a lot of misunderstanding and there's a lot of kind of mixed messaging that exists. And so
Mm,
what I mean by that is there are different versions of testing that be completed. So patients could get a hearing screening in some places, or they could get like a diagnostic evaluation. Parts of the test absolutely have overlapping, but they aren't always the same complete picture. And so when we're looking at different outcomes or we're screening for different concerns, like in my practice, we have a medical audiology practice. So I'm looking for abnormalities of which we would need to make a referral, or perhaps they need to go on to
mm,
receive imaging. It's not just quick, here, yes, here, no, wham, bam, this is what we're doing. And so we're going into more advanced testing and getting deeper into that. And that's not always well portrayed because they're like, well, I was still sitting in the booth and I still pushed the button and I still answered a question. And so I think on some of it, it's a lack of information or knowing why certain providers are asking for more information, doing more invasive case histories and really getting into that side of it. On the tinnitus side, there are so many questionable methods out there. If you were to search like tinnitus solutions, you will have an infinite Google search history of what will come up. And so within the tinnitus field, especially, it makes it really tricky because anyone can sell anything online. You
yeah,
can make a potion in your backyard and figure out how to get a business license and make it available for sale tomorrow.
it's
And
true.
so it is true. It's scary and true. And so with tinnitus, especially, trust is so crucial because my patients need to trust that the recommendations that I'm making, whether it be referring them for mental health counseling, whether it be working on some different integrated technologies through their phone with different cognitive behavioral therapy apps, whether it's that I am recommending a device, maybe that is a hearing aid, maybe that is a tinnitus specific device and their hearing is fine. I need to be able to have them trust me enough to know that the type of option that we're recommending to them to work on their tinnitus is valid and with measure, and not just because it was the fun and flashy thing that popped up on the first Google ad word, because there are thousands of them. Even if you just walk into like a depart or not a, like a convenience store and you walk down the aisle, there's like a whole tinnitus section. And unfortunately, none of those have found to be rooted in science or factual based outcome, but you can purchase them.
That's
Um,
kind of crazy. I wouldn't have even thought that in
yeah,
that
it's all
particular
over. I've
space.
heard so many versions of like anti-ring, ringing in the ears, and then it'll have like a vitamin attached to it.
Oh,
So
geez.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of misinformation out
Lots of fish oil.
there is, and so having to work through that and really gain the trust of patients to be able to make those types of recommendations, I think is the most difficult portion, just because while the internet is lovely and I love using it and it's really makes my life easy sometimes, it also makes it really hard and difficult for patients to know what to navigate as factually and based information versus who made a really good website and is really good at marketing a product.
Yeah, well, that actually kind of it brings something up for me as well, and I'm glad that you kind of hit on that because in my experience with a lot of the best experts in the world, they're usually not the most well known because they're not the best at marketing. And so you get all these companies who have some of the best marketers around that can really push a business forward, but it kind of hides the experts. So I'm curious if you guys have kind of done anything or tried to do anything to get yourselves in a position to where you can somehow compete with some of these other companies that are maybe just trying to sell
Yeah.
get quick, get well quick things.
Yeah, and they certainly exist, absolutely. I don't know that any field at this point, even non-healthcare related, is not competing with that kind of mass marketing or larger online presence, but less of a physical presence. I think that's just inundated within our
Hmm.
communities at this point. Um, I can't compete with them when it comes to spending all of the time and marketing dollars on the videos and the content and all of the online outreach and 50 states of SEO and looking at it from that angle. I'm also not trying to compete with them either for that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not trying to compete with them in the sense of not caring about those patients or whom they're interacting with, but I also have to be able to be true to my own capacity and my team's capacity. And so as we take those next expansion steps, like with the new licensures that I'm currently pursuing, we have to know that we have the right bandwidth and the ability to facilitate those additional locations that we're working on actively expanding in. Because what I can bring in that true, genuine ability to work with my patients, they know us by name, they know who we look like. That's a real person and a real connection and a real meaningful relationship that we can establish
Hmm.
versus when you are literally everywhere and yet nowhere at the same time, you don't get to have that type of integral relationship. And those types of marketing avenues aren't also necessarily looking to have those kind of in-person wellness established care. And so it's a different model. It's no different than a different model if somebody wants to go to kind of a large conglomerate and receive healthcare versus going to like a family practice. There's not a wrong answer, but there's definitely a different outcome that you're going to see in terms of that one-on-one relationship. Or is it always a different provider? Is it always the same provider? And so everyone has different goals. So within my space, I do the best that I can to let the communities know where I'm at. On my own website, put the hey, here's our upcoming field clinics, give patients plenty of time, work on getting word of mouth out. But I never want to be so stretched thin that I am now sacrificing my ability to have that quality and real connection with my patient, because that's, I think, what has allowed us to thrive and do so well is that I know who they are. I know what their grandkids' names are or their spouses or that they're having a wedding. And we had a couple patients this summer from not Alaska that came up to Alaska and came and just said hello. They didn't have an
Wow.
appointment. They didn't want anything. They just wanted to come and say hi. And to me, that right there, that's what it's about. It's not just another person who happened to come through the doors.
Yeah, no, that's a completely different level of service when they're doing that kind of a thing. So again,
I
I've never
know.
traveled to a doctor to say hi. It
Yeah,
shows a lot, says a lot about you and
to
what
be
you're
fair,
what you're
they didn't
creating.
travel to me to say hi. They happened to be here and knew this was where I
They
was.
stop by.
Yeah, they did not
Yeah,
come up here just to say hi. They had other reasons for being here, but happened to be here and called and said, "Hey, can I come in and say hi?" Yes, yes, you can.
yeah, that makes total sense. Well, listen, I'm curious. Yeah, we're kind of getting close to time, and I've got one more activity I want to take you through. But um, there's obviously a lot going on right now with AI and technology. The world is changing in front of our eyes rapidly. I'm curious where you see your industry going over the next 5 to 10 years, and how you're working to try and stay ahead of the curve.
Sure. So I can say that utilizing AI can be both helpful and sometimes counterproductive because occasionally it doesn't quite get it right, which makes a mess to have to go in and fix things. So, I mean, we're using automatic things for emails and birthdays and different, like our different email lists, or when we have a newsletter. And we certainly have a lot of automaticity that we have integrated and are currently using. At
Hmm.
this time in my personal practice, we have not made the decision to use AI for like the chat bots and responses on our website. I still want that to be a person. Um, as far as other things, we utilize different tools for chart notes. So I have like an AI transcription that I'm able to be one on one with my patient and know that I've got a full AI transcription happening. I can read every word, I can pull chart notes. That allows me to be more involved, allows me to have more patient time because I'm less bogged down with admin time.
Yep.
So I'm certainly utilizing it in hearing aids and that technology. We've got like deep neural networks being integrated into the computer chips and different AIs into the hearing aid chips that if you're standing here and there's excess sounds or different information coming in, that the hearing aids have this ability to start kind of processing in or processing out. So I mean, it's here. We're certainly
I was
using
gonna say the chips themselves are probably going to change substantially.
absolutely, and they've already changed, to be fair, just even in the last 3 years, they've had some significant changes, but yes, I think we're at the very beginning of that cusp and seeing what it's going to happen. So I think, in general is be aware of it, be open to it. Like I said, there's certain things that we have moved for AI and utilizing to better enhance and streamline our services. And then also because we are a healthcare profession, there's certain things that I don't want to cross that line at this time to make sure that we've always still got that genuine, true person on the other end of it. Just with the nature of our patients being a little bit more sensitive, I want to make sure they're not getting a chatbot response and they are getting a actual human being that can read between the lines or have the ability to pick up a phone, immediately make a call, and do an interjection in the event that that may need to be done.
Yeah, which is really cool. Again, that customer service is amazing. So, what I want to do now, I usually don't tell my guests about this, but
Okay,
we've
great.
talked shop for a little bit. We've talked about the business, but I like to shake things up a little bit with
Okay.
what I call a lightning round.
Okay.
And this is where I'm going to ask you 10 quick questions. And I just want you to come up with the first answer that comes
First
to your
thing.
mind. So, quick
Okay.
answers to quick questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
This is
Coffee or tea?
dangerous. T.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
If you could grab one item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
My kids.
Okay, that's multiple, but I'll call that one item.
Well,
That's
I
a good
have
one.
two. I can't pick one.
Which one? Which one?
Don't make me do that on camera. It depends on the day. Which one slept better? Which made their dinner nicer? Who's not arguing
that,
with me?
that's very true. One of like a favorite quote or phrase that you think about often.
I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. It's the
Okay,
question isn't who is going to let me, it's who is going to stop me by Ayn Rand.
that's a great one. It's the first
So
time I've
that
heard that one.
it hangs above my desk.
Okay, that's a
Yep.
good one. Um, Favorite guilty pleasure movie or streaming series?
Right now, it's this, what is it? The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. My girlfriends and I have been very
Yeah,
inappropriately binge watching that
that's a hard one not to binge
shenanigan.
watch.
It really
That's
is. At
that's
the
funny.
moment, that's what it is.
Okay, but it's a guilty pleasure. It makes sense. One book that maybe you've read that you would recommend to the viewers that maybe haven't read it.
Like a business book or just a personal book?
Any book. This could be all these questions are business, personal,
Okay.
whatever you want to make it.
Um, Stress Wisely would be a book
Okay.
that I both utilized from a business perspective, but then also was able to carry it well over into a personal life aspect. So stress wisely.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a great one. I haven't heard of that one yet.
We all stress,
Um,
so let's just do it better.
it's true, right? It's a great prioritize which things you're going to stress over. Uh,
Exactly.
what's one bucket list item that you've already accomplished?
Goodness. Being able to continue to travel with my family and my young children and still be able to be a present business owner and provider.
That's a great one. Okay. The opposite of that, one bucket list item you have not accomplished yet.
Antarctica. I am going
Ooh,
to see the penguins.
oh, see, I'd be going so I can meet the aliens.
Yeah. It's a trip.
It's
You just got to roll with what you see. But I want to go see the penguins. Yes, Antarctica.
okay. That's
Not been
awesome.
able to do that one yet.
I love it. I'm doing a docu-series of the oldest libraries on every continent. And so the
Okay,
Antarctic Library is the newest. It was done in the 1950s, but it's the
you've
most
got.
secretive. So that's
I've done
that.
the polar plunge in Alaska, so I feel like I need to do whatever the southern
Gotta
plunge
hit the other, gotta
of.
hit the other side
Yeah, no, I
for
need to go
sure.
to Antarctica.
So final one, one of the biggest obstacles you've had to overcome and one big lesson that you learned from it.
One of the largest obstacles I would say is staffing.
Yeah,
Not being able to
for sure.
find people, but being able to find the right people. And the overcome part of that is sometimes it is better to be without a filled position rather than fill it with an inappropriate person.
100%.
That
Slow
would,
to hire, quick to let go is kind of the
yep,
idea. Yep.
because it is a hard thing to learn when the wrong person is in a spot. How much damage a, an inappropriate person for that position can do. So I would say that's a constant wheel. Right now, I have a killer staff, but I haven't always, and it's a hard thing to work. And I feel like it's a constantly evolving aspect of being a business owner.
Oh, 100%. How many do you have right now?
In person, 5. Out of the office, there's an additional 4.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So still a relatively small team, which is great. That's
yep,
you still get to have that
we all
camaraderie factor there.
know each other way more than we probably want to know each other at times, but genuinely, I can say that we genuinely enjoy each other. Many of us travel and do fun things not related to work and enjoy it. But yes, the right person for the right part and the right message is a hard one to not always be able to navigate.
Yeah, that's an amazing one. Well, Emily, our time is up. I appreciate you being here today and volunteering your time to give us some information on your experience in the world. And I'll make sure that all of our viewers, per usual, have all the contact information, websites, how to get in touch with you. But
Perfect.
I really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.